All right, what's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining us on this flight today. Thank you for choosing Schaefer Art Airlines. We're preparing for takeoff. And hope you'll have a good flight with me. I just say that because my computer has this fan blowing. It sounds like it's preparing for liftoff today, folks. But anyway, hope you guys are doing well. We're just going to jump right into these critiques, I guess. We might wait for a few more people to jump in real quick before I get into them. Just so that we give a few people time to notice that I'm live, tune in, make sure they don't miss their critique if they're going to make it. But we can talk for a minute or two. It's Friday. Feels good. Feels good. How's everybody doing? JSA Drawing, what's happening? Passion for Life, Lynn, Candy, Matthias, Brickatech, Amanda, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Sue, what's happening? Joyce, everybody's here. Cool. Got some people tuning in. Cubs win. Thanks for joining. I'm sure Nathan will come in later. He always comes in a bit later. He probably has to work during the day and stuff, I imagine. But we got one of his pieces in here as well. Oops, sorry about that, folks. I have my laptop set up so the way the Mac sets up, if you move your cursor into any of the corners, it sets off a little, something can happen. You can look at the windows you're viewing and all kinds of stuff. So if I ever go into the corner, stuff can disappear and it gets all crazy. But anyway, let me get a timer going here. And it looks like, we don't have too many today, luckily. So we got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we got 10. So I could probably do like 4 minutes each or something, maybe. If I need 4 minutes. So that's cool. Oh, Nathan's in. Cool. Thanks for joining, man. I thought you might be in a little bit later. I was just mentioning that. But, all right, let's get started, folks. It seems like we got enough people here. So we got this first one here. I'm not sure what the medium is. I'm going to start the timer for 4 minutes. So we'll just talk about it a little bit. And I'm not sure what the medium is, but it doesn't really matter. It might be like acrylics, I believe, is what this artist has submitted stuff in the past as well. So they followed a Bob Ross tutorial in the past. And I believe they were using acrylics to do that. So this one is probably acrylics, I believe. And this time they took my advice that I gave them last time. I said, hey, try doing something on your own. Use a reference photo. And that's what they did. So they used a reference photo for this one. I like what's going on here. I like the mood of it, the colors. It's very monochromatic. The blues and the cools give the effect of night, definitely. Obviously the moon is much larger than it would really be. This is probably some kind of illustrative type of photo. Not super realistic, but pretty interesting. It looks cool. I think the ship's painted really well, all the little details and stuff. It's obviously a focal point here. So I like that. There's a little bit of, looks like hills in the distance here, so that's kind of cool. Some kind of something happening back there. It might be nice to kind of bring some of that a little bit more in a little bit, maybe a little bit darker, more prominent. Another thing to watch out for is the horizon line. So usually, like when you're painting an ocean like this, you really want the horizon line to be straight. And what I notice here is as it goes across, it goes downward. So, might want to just tidy that up a little bit. It doesn't have to be like perfectly straight, but just to make it as straight as you can, because if you can notice that it's really off like that, it's very distracting, especially when with an ocean. It's usually, unless you're painting big waves or something and there's other kinds of things happening, you know, it's not going to be completely straight, but I feel like for this one, just straighten that up a little bit here. Just add a little bit more paint on this side of the ship, and I think it'd be looking pretty good. Because if we look at the painting at the bottom, it's pretty straight. I mean, you took a good photo, actually. So the painting's pretty straight, so just need a little bit more water there. I feel like the water overall could possibly be simplified a little bit. I feel like there's just too... It's a little, just slightly too chaotic. You know, I know we want it to be chaotic. It's the ocean. There's a lot of waves and things happening, but just kind of quiet it down a little bit, especially towards the edges of the painting. Maybe have some kind of vignetting, you know, kind of tone it down. Yeah, good point, Cubs win. The line work here is really good. I like all the strings and stuff happening. Something you can play around with is, instead of making these strings completely black, make them just a little bit lighter. You know, add just a touch of white to them just to make them a lighter black. And the reason for that is usually things that are smaller like that, very, very thin, they're not going to be as dark in value. Even though they are black, they're not going to be as dark as value as these masts and other things in the painting that are thicker and bigger. And the reason for that is, it's really hard to explain, but you got to imagine the atmosphere around this thing, the air. So the atmosphere will be wrapping around those very, very small shapes. So it's kind of like a diffusion thing. You know, if you think about a tree trunk and then the small, tiny branches, the tree trunk's going to look much darker than those tiny branches. You know what I mean? So just try to paint it like that. Maybe, you know, just lighten up some of those very slightly. You know, you don't have to lighten them up a whole lot. You know, you don't want them to look light. You don't want them to look like white or anything, obviously. Just a little bit much light, just a little tiny bit lighter than that black. And it'll just give the effect that there's something smaller, skinnier. So the timer just ended, but real quick here, I'll just talk about the moon. It's not something I really touched on. You know, I like it. I think the colors are nice. The subtlety in the colors is very nice. I feel like the reflection is suffering a little bit. You know, I feel like maybe it needs to be a little bit brighter, or it looks like you added some yellow in there to kind of match the color of the moon, but it ended up just turning the water a bit green. You know, I didn't see the photo reference, so I'm not exactly sure what exactly it looked like, but I would be careful about that, because you don't want it to look green when you're trying to show reflection like that. So maybe just a little bit brighter here, possibly. Or yeah, it's kind of difficult, because I feel like, and maybe the whole sky could be a bit darker and it would really make the moon pop out. But that's just my thoughts on it. But overall, great work, you know. Really great effort for you trying something on your own from a photo reference. I mean, the drawing here is really great, so keep up the good work. Thanks for sending that in. Greatly appreciated. So I hope I touched on a lot of things. You know, just horizon line, you know, kind of quiet down the water a little bit. I mean, it's okay to have some chaotic areas, mostly around the focal point usually, you know, maybe around the moon reflection and the boat. But any of the other areas, kind of just, you know, make it a little quiet, like try to use longer, bigger strokes and don't dab as much, you know. Yeah, stuff like that. But I do like how all the detail is on the ship. So anyway, let's go to the next one here, and we'll start the 4-minute timer again. We'll just run right through these, you know. Actually, let's stop the timer real quick, and I'm gonna see the chat, see what anybody else said about that one. Sue says the ship is amazing, a lot of detail, calmer ocean would give more focus to the ship. Yeah, it's not even about that really. I mean, there was a lot of focus on the ship. I think it was just a little overwhelming. But yeah, in a way, you're right. It would give more focus to the ship for sure. But I think just as it appearing as an ocean, it just needs to be, you know, longer lines, slightly, you know, kind of waves and stuff like that. With a big moon, it may need big shadow of the ship. That's true, possibly true. You know, it just depends. But yeah, I think maybe darkening up that sky a bit would really make the light effect really pop. But it was a pretty good effort. All right, let's move on, folks. So this one, I'm not sure the medium as well. Could be acrylic again, could be oil, could be something entirely different. I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, I'm just kind of soaking this one in, trying to figure out. So I feel like I feel conflicted about a focal point here. I feel conflicted about the lighting. Overall, I love the colors. I love the texture here, this repeated texture. It looks very natural. I love the way you did the clouds. I love the style of it. You know, I think there's a lot of good things happening here. I will say that painting squares are very challenging. Squares are very challenging because it's difficult. It can be difficult. It's not always difficult, but it can be difficult to have a interesting composition with a square, because you have to be a little more. You have to think a little bit, because you know, normally if you're painting like a horizontal or a portrait, it already gives you some kind of advantage for composition. You know, it already kind of puts you in some sort of window for composition. And with this square, what already happens from, it looks like probably from the very beginning, is you cut it completely in half. So you have half of it sky, half of it corn, I believe, or some kind of flowers. But yeah, it does look like corn, actually. Somebody mentioned that. So it's really cool. It looks really cool. I love the colors. I love the way it looks. But composition-wise, cut it right in half. I mean, sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes that can work. But I think in this case, we get lost on what are we supposed to be looking at exactly. I feel like maybe, obviously the canvas is a square, so it's kind of difficult. But if this were to be like cropped, if you were to crop this horizontally or something, I would make like almost 2/3 of it ground, 1/3 sky, or vice versa. More sky, less ground. And then that'll give us the idea of what the focus is. You know, you see when we crop this, we have this window. If we were to black out the bottom part or white out the bottom part there, you know, obviously the focus would be on the clouds. And if we move it down, the focus is more on the ground. So just be careful about that composition wise. I know it's very challenging, of course. Sometimes we just paint from photos or something and we don't really pay attention to the composition as much. It's hard, especially if you haven't practiced it a lot, it's hard to manipulate and change things in photos. I know how difficult that is. It's a bit easier for me nowadays because I've practiced it a lot over the years. I painted from life and had to change things. But yeah, composition is huge in this one. Also at the bottom here, in this bottom corner, I feel like this corn in the corner down here, it's kind of blocking our entry into this painting. Like this pathway here gets blocked by all this corn growing. So maybe if there was a little bit less of that, just maybe some in the corner, kind of branching off from this curve or something, just growing up in the corner, but still giving us a lead into the painting, like leading us back into the painting. You know, I feel like it'd be a little bit more successful. And also maybe, also looking at the composition again, you have this pathway and then it leads us off to the edge. It leads us right out of the painting. So you got to be careful about that. I would have this, you know, I would change this some way, you know, maybe try to have it curve a bit more inward and then, you know, back into the distance or something, or have it go off this way and then have some kind of line that cuts back into the painting to the other side. there needs to be some kind of element to draw us over to this left side of the painting. Otherwise, our eye is just going right off the right side. So whatever that element could be back here, I'm not really sure. But you know, you could have a bigger grouping of trees back here or something. It's kind of difficult because there's so much distance that if you made something really big back there, it's gonna feel like it's enormous just because of the perspective. So other than that, it looks really great. I think just be aware of the composition in the future. Try to think about it a little bit more, and just be aware of the square. It's very difficult. So maybe cropping stuff like this, or even just, you know, either nudging the, you know, just, yeah, either a little bit more ground or a little more sky. You usually don't want to cut it half and half unless you have something more happening in the painting. You know, if we had a giant tree in the foreground and stuff happening more in the foreground or middle ground, then the sky wouldn't be as consequential as it is in this painting, if that makes sense. But anyway, thanks for sending this in though. I love the colors, I love the harmony, I love the style, the way you did the clouds, the texture. I think the big thing with this one is just composition. Also, I mentioned the lighting. I'm a little confused about is it a cloudy day? Is it overcast? Is there, you know, the shadows are all dark and underneath. So I feel like this is like an overcast day. If that's true, then it looks great. I think it looks great. So I get the feeling of like an overcast day with this one. So let's move on to the next one here, folks. 4 minutes on the timer. Okay, let's stop the timer. Let's see. A lot of interesting things going on in the chat here. Somebody says it could have been wheat, but I think it is corn, because wheat, I don't know if it has like a green stalk like that. The path should start more at an angle, not at the right angle in the corner, but pretty, but composition is off. I agree a little bit. You know, I think you can start the path in the corner. You know, it just depends on what you do with it after that. You know, if we look at the thumbnail over here on the side, like, it doesn't look that bad actually. It's just that we have the pathway leading us off to the side. Like if we look at this small, like it looks really nice actually. It looks very nice. You know, I think you could have it be off in the corner. It's just, you got to have it diagonally going somewhere else, you know, and not off the page. And just needs a little, you know, it just needs to be thought out a little bit more. Just a little bit, you know, but it looks great. You know, if we were looking at this from far away across the room, it's probably like this big, you know, and it gives off a great vibe, you know. But yeah, thanks for you guys' comments. I agree. So this is the photo reference, and this is the painting. So the photo reference is over here on the side, folks. And I think this is either a painting or a drawing. I'm not exactly sure. It looks like could have been oil pastels, possibly, you know, given that texture down there, or it's just some dry brushing with watercolor or something. I'm a little, it's hard to tell. Some of it looks like thick paint, and some of it looks like oil pastel or crayon or something. I'm conflicted about the medium here, but I'm not sure. Anyway, let's start the timer. 4 minutes, folks. Try to get through these. So the first thing I notice, I don't know if it's the photo. It might be a crooked photo, but the horizon, it looks like you're going uphill here. So if we jump back to the photo reference, we see everything's kind of straight across, and this photo isn't actually it's not really a great composition. When you look at these trees, they're all equally spaced, except for that one tree in the middle there. There's 2 trees doubled up, so it makes it a little more interesting. But having these trees all be evenly spaced, this is a time that I would modify this composition. move some trees around, maybe get rid of one of them, just make it a more interesting, and your painting here or drawing, you know, they're a little bit evenly spaced. It looks a little more interesting here, not too bad, but it does look like you're going uphill. I don't know if you meant to do that. If so, it's pretty cool. It looks like, you know, you have a little bit of an incline there. But at least you're consistent. Everything's kind of at an incline. The way the dog is here and the person, everything's kind of at an incline. So maybe the photo is just a little bit crooked. I'm not sure. But I love how you focus on the values, the monochrome aspects of it. The texture's nice. It looks very natural. You know, you got this tree up here in the top. Everything's pretty natural looking. Let me look at this from far away. Let me see. I feel like we're missing something that connects all these elements in a way, if that makes sense. It feels, to me, it feels a little disconnected overall. It does feel very cold, I agree. It does give off a vibe of coldness. Oops, sorry folks. You know, it does look good. You know, these trees are nice, everything. I like what's going on here, but it's something about it. It feels, in a way, in a small way, feels disconnected. Like the foreground feels, it starts feeling flat down here to me. We start losing perspective a bit. And that could be the photo reference. I mean, it is kind of weird. There's like this hill in the foreground with all these grasses. So we lose a bit of perspective there, but yeah, something feels disconnected here. I feel like we need something to connect all these elements, like maybe more of this tree or less of this tree or something. If we look at the foreground here, there's like some trees coming off to the side. It seems, you know, you can just tell this tree is in the foreground with us, and it's kind of framing this side of the painting or the drawing. This side kind of balances out this focal point here that's off on the rule of thirds there. So it's one, you know, it's on the line of the third here and then line of the third there. So a nice little sweet spot. But here you kind of put them in the center. So I would kind of shift these over, maybe make them a little bit smaller, make the human a bit smaller, shift it over to the side. Because normally you don't want it right in the middle like that. You want it just a little bit off center or more on this line of the third or this side. But I feel like there's some kind of, yeah, there's just something that's like there's just something a little bit off here. It's not bad. It's definitely not bad. It's a good effort. I just think a little more refining, you know, this would be an interesting composition, you know, more some kind of branches or something. You know, you don't want to put too many branches. It could be distracting. I do like that you kind of simplified it, but I do feel like this tree in the top, it's almost like we might not even need that much. You know, it's almost a little distracting to me. Maybe this branch here at the top could have been curved downward more, so that it's kind of like this tree is kind of right over here. And, you know, just give a little more context to it, because otherwise it's just like these floating branches at the top. You know, it's like some kind of UFO flying in or something. That's kind of the impression it gives off to me. Maybe work on the person a bit here. The stance is a little... Obviously that's a challenge. You know, humans are definitely challenging to draw, so maybe practice on a different sheet. You know, draw it a few times till you get it right, and then just transfer it to your final painting or final, you know, final painting or final drawing. You know, try to just practice this one element first before you jump into it. That's one idea. But not bad. Definitely not bad. I really love the background here. I think that's, to me, that's really probably the best part of this whole thing is this background. You know, a lot of nice spatial depth going on. You know, I'm not sure the right word, but anyway, thanks for sending that in. I hope that helped a little bit, you know. Definitely some great work here. Great natural looking branches and stuff. You know, I think composition just needs to be refined a little bit. Maybe do some thumbnail sketches first and just try a few different things, you know, play around with these branches in the foreground. Try adding more, try taking them out completely. Move this person around in the scene. Like, what happens if I put them way in the background or way in the foreground or off to one side? You know, just try to play around with the elements a little bit before deciding. So anyway, you can also read the chat on the side. I think they have a lot of interesting points as well. But yeah. So this one is from Nathan. Start the timer 4 minutes. Let's get into it. It ends up being like 5 to 6 minutes, of course. But so this one's really cool. I love the way you sign your name and you have that little stamp down there. That's really cool, man. I like that. Is that a? By the way, is that stamp ink or is it like? It's probably a dumb question. Like, I don't know if can you stamp watercolor? I don't know. I'm not really sure how that works out. But what does that stamp mean, by the way? I don't know if you want to like say it or not, but I'm curious of like what that, I don't know if it's like Japanese or Chinese or just made up or something, but it's pretty cool. I like that. But anyway, that's just a small detail, of course. I'm just curious. So we got some flowers here from Nathan. A little bit different style. It's a little less detailed than his normal way of doing things. Usually he goes very detailed and spends a lot of time on them, you know, 20 hours, 50 hours, stuff like that. Oh, it's Japanese for Nate. All right, that makes sense. I mean, that's pretty cool. Pretty darn cool. How long did this one take you, by the way? I'm curious if you remember or if you know. But I do like the lighting here. Got some shadows going on. This one looks like it's mostly in shadow. Yeah. Very vibrant colors. I know those kinds of colors in flowers and stuff is like, wow, 12 to 15 hours on this one. Okay. I know colors like this, like red and purples and stuff and pinks, like that's super difficult to paint. You know, when I try to paint those kinds of things, it's very challenging. So I really love this deep color you got in here. The transition from this shadow and this red and then this little bit of purple here. I mean, yeah, that's really nice. Very, very subtle and that little bit of light here. It's almost like you get a sense of translucency or something, but I know it's probably not translucency, but it's almost like you get like a color changing effect there, like makes it look like it's like velvet or something. You know, when you look at it at a different angle, it kind of gets like color changes and stuff. Yeah, I like the detail there. It looks very natural, this little part here. That's really cool. Really interesting. The edge here on the petal, it's done really well, man. I like this. I love the background. I love how simple the background is, and it gives like that bokeh kind of effect. Like it's not distracting at all. You know, it's very soft. You got some soft edges up here. Some of the edges here are a bit sharp all the way around, but yeah, it's not too bad. It doesn't bother me that much, actually, surprisingly. Normally I always talk about edges all the time. Soften edges, but you do have a lot of soft edges here, a little bit, very subtle, soft things happening around the petals. Is there anything I could change with this? If I were to, like, that's what I always try to think, like, with these critiques. Like, all right, if this was my painting, is there anything I could add or take away from it, or like, what could be changed here? Well, it's the end of the timer there. Yeah, I like this one, man. I like it. I like it. I like the harmony's great. The color's very simple. I think you said what you wanted to say with it in a very, yeah, you got your idea across with minimal details, of course. There's still some details there, especially around the stems, or what are those called? Stamens or whatever. Pretty cool. I don't know. What did anybody else say? Anything? Unusual flowers. Yeah, very interesting though. I'm sure they're very beautiful in person, but needs a light focal point on the small bud. Oh, I see what you're saying. I mean, it does have very bright right here. But maybe you're talking about here. I don't know. But yeah. Really great painting though, man. I don't really have anything to say to improve, really. You know, I could say like some of the shadows maybe like, yeah, see that's the problem. Like I feel like some of the shadows are too light, but then when I see the dark shadows down here, I realize like these need to be lighter because of the local color. Like usually, you know, you don't need really super high contrast all the time, but you do already have that anyway, so But anyway, yeah, it looks a great painting, man. I love the harmony. I love the cools in the background. Cool green softness against these purples and reds. I'm sure that was a difficult painting, trying to manage all those reds and purples and stuff. That's super challenging. But thanks for sending that one in. It's always great to see your work, of course. All right, so here we have, believe it or not, folks, and I don't know, part of me believes it. Of course I believe it because I've seen the videos and stuff, but this was done, I think this is, yeah, this is JSA Drawing. I think they're still in the chat. Here we go. There they are in the chat. And why don't you tell everybody how old you are, by the way, JSA Drawing. Because I don't think many people would believe it, how old this artist is. 13 years old, folks. So that's great, man. That's incredible that you're drawing like this at 13 years old. I mean, you definitely have a future ahead of you in art, that's for sure. So keep up the work. You know, by the time you're 18, maybe even before that, by the time you're 18 and 20, I mean, yeah, you're gonna have you're not gonna starve, you know what I mean? I think you're gonna have plenty of work to do, but yeah, you'll be doing just fine, that's for sure, probably. So anyway, let's start this timer. I don't know what I don't know how to critique this one, to be honest. So this one looks pretty recent, October 8th, 2020. I believe they have a video up online showing how he did parts of this one too. So yeah, how do I critique something like this, folks? What medium is this, by the way? Is this color pencil? By the way, JSA Drawing, is this color pencil? Yeah, and how long did this take you, by the way? We should probably get a little bit of info here, because close to 100 hours. I mean, that's dedication right there. And it's colored pencil. Okay, 100 hours, almost 100 hours in colored pencil. Well, you have amazing patience for a 13-year-old. I'll tell you that. I mean, I think it's very rare nowadays. I mean, I don't even have that much patience. If I had to spend 13 hours on a piece of art, like, no thanks, man. No thanks. I'm annoyed if I spend more than 5 or 6 hours. That's probably my maximum. But yeah, wow. Yeah, really great detail, great suggestion of details, because I know the way you draw this, it's not about the details, it's about suggesting it. You know, when you look at the hair, it looks all detailed, but up close, I mean, it gets pixelated, but up to close, you know, it's just these little things that make it look like hair. And that's very, I mean, to be able to get those negative shapes like that, and the you know, to make it look like positive shapes, just drawing the negative shapes around the white hair. I mean, I don't know, man. That seems very difficult to me. I don't know how you could do that. You know, the only thing that bothers me, to be honest, if I'm being honest, when I look at it as, maybe it doesn't bother me. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's probably just the photo and stuff, but what bothers me is this light part on his face. To me, it's a bit distracting. And I understand, like, you're copying the photo, it's like hyper-realism and stuff, but I feel like I would tone that down, just because it kind of distracts me from, like, this part of his face, because it's really, like, I think the problem is, like, it gets darker right around that area as well, so it really bumps up the contrast there. And like I said, it probably looks just like the reference photo, but to me, that bothers me. That's just something that bothers me as I'm looking at it as a piece of art. But other than that, I mean, I love the details. I love the suggestion of details and the textures you're able to get, the values, everything, the drawing. It's really nice, man. Really, really great, really good. I feel like the edges down here around his shirt, I feel like you could just soften those and, like, don't make it so sharp down there. Because that right there, that's a very sharp edge. A lot of contrast there. So as a piece of art, I would just be like, just watch out for that, because once I notice that and see that, like, I get attracted down there, because everything else it's very soft and not a whole lot of contrast, around his eyes and the nose. There's little highlights and stuff, but there's nothing where it's super sharp edges like that. So something like that in the future, just try to, like, modify it a little bit, even though the photo doesn't look like that. Just try to modify it a little bit, just because you want to keep the focus, boom, right here on his face. But I'm sure in person this thing looks really great too, so it's always hard to critique from a photo. But thanks for sending this in. Yeah, thanks for sending this in, JSA Drawing. I've never drawn anything like that before, so it's kind of hard for me to give you a critique, but just me looking at it as another artist, it's just those bright, distracting things to me, and then the edges, the contrast, stuff like that. Just be careful about that, and don't be afraid to modify the reference photo a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, it depends on your goals too. Like, if you want it to look exactly like the photo, and I understand, like, especially when you're starting out, that could be a very good goal to do, because you're just boosting your skills, like trying to get as close as you can to what you're seeing. So that is a good idea, but then I think over time, try to start modifying a bit and really create, keep the focus where you want it to be. It's just something to think about, So here we have a nice watercolor painting. Oh, sorry folks, just a little break there. Okay, start the timer here. Yeah, thanks for sending that in. Appreciate it. Keep on drawing. Keep up the great work, and yeah, just stick with everything. Just stick with it. Thanks for watching my live stream and tuning in. Greatly appreciate it. start the 4-minute timer. So this is a watercolor, and this was one of their first attempts at something a little less detailed, kind of trying to be more loose, I guess, and less detailed attempt. I really love the colors here. Yeah, it's very painterly, very loose. I love the light effect here on the vase. It's very nice. Got some nice shadows underneath here and fallen petals and stuff. I feel, and this is just me too, it could just be the way I am. I feel like I want more texture. You know, I think it's because I'm a landscape painter and I like having texture and really having some of that. But I feel like in some of these leaves, I feel like we could have like little things floating next to them, you know, kind of like how you have back here, like you have like some floating petals and stuff. I feel like we could just have a little bit more shapes, interesting things happening possibly. It gets a little confusing here. I think I know you're doing this from a reference photo, so it's always hard to critique like that. And also seeing a photo of it's different than real life. So I know, and that's why I try to look at it smaller, because it gives the impression of like you're looking at it further away, and it does read really nicely far away. It does read really nicely. I love the cool versus warms here. I love the dark against light and light against dark in the background. I feel like maybe the background could be more of a gradient. Like maybe on this side of the vase it could be a little bit darker. You know, because it's kind of very abrupt. It goes from like black or like a very dark gray to white instantly. I feel like we could make it look a little more like it's, yeah, I don't know. It's not bad. It doesn't bother me that much, but I feel like either lighten up this side of it so there's less contrast, or darken this a little bit just so it doesn't look so abrupt on the eyes. Because up here it's very soft. It gets softer. So it's obviously, it's not like a sheet back there that's black or something. Yeah, the dark side too dark. Yeah, I agree. I think either the light side could be darker and have more more of a light effect overall in this painting, or lighten up the dark side, which obviously you can't do now. It's too late, but yeah. The problem is if you lighten up the dark side, then you kind of lose some of that contrast, some of that light effect that I actually like in this one. It has a nice glowing effect right here on the vase. I feel like we need more shadows or something. It's hard to tell where the light's coming from. Like maybe from this, it's coming from this side, maybe above or something. I feel like we just need like more shadowing and more, not detail, but separation for like petals or yeah, just maybe some small line work or something. Very subtle though. It doesn't have to be anything dark, nothing like that. Just differences of planes and shapes. And yeah, but I do love the texture on the vase, the subtlety of the light and the dark, the way that's going on. I really love that. I love the cools and warms. I feel like you could even push that even more. You know, I feel like some of this back in here on this vase could be much darker and warmer. And just because in this painting, when I look at it, I feel like we're missing a really dark. And I feel like it would give it a lot of contrast. And I feel like just right around this vase, the mouth of the vase, I feel like we could have like some darks in there to show that things are bunching together going into the vase, and like just have it dark and warm. Usually your darkest darks are going to be warm. You do have a little bit here, some darks there. I feel like just we need a little bit more of that, maybe right under the vase as well, to kind of make it sit on the table, just have a little bit of a dark, something dark underneath there as well. Or is the table reflective? Is this a reflection, or is this a flower on the table? Now I'm really looking at it. I don't know if these are shadows or if it's like a glass table. Yeah, something to think about though. But yeah, great work though. I would love to see this one in person. I love the warms and cools and stuff. Very painterly. I think it's just tweaking a few little things, like, you know, darkening up the background and like having, for me, like personally, I would like splatter. I would do some splattering in some of these leaves, but that's just a personal preference, you know, that I like a lot of texture, especially for like leaves and foliage and stuff that's like kind of living. I like showing like splatter. It just adds another textural dimension to it. But a flower on the table reflecting onto the vase. Okay. I like that. Yeah, I like how you have like reflections of stuff in the vase. It's really cool. So, yeah. Great work. As always, you do a lot of great work that I've seen, definitely. So thank you for sending that in. I hope that was helpful in some way. I don't know, I try to be helpful, but a lot of it's personal preference, you know. It's just like pushing the temperature, pushing the values, or not pushing the values, maybe making it less contrasty in some places, you know. It's just stuff like that. But so this is a reference photo for one of them. Yeah, this is a reference photo, and then this is the, oh, that's the drawing. So the reference photo is here on the side, folks. And let's start the timer, I guess. 4 minutes, let's go. So this is pretty good. This is really good. I like the contrast here. Very dark underneath. That's good, looking good. When I look at the photo, I feel like overall the shadow could have been darker, given more contrast, but it's all right. It's not a big deal. I know when you're doing with pencil or charcoal like this, it can be difficult. It takes a lot of time to really push the values and darken everything. I feel just for the contrast overall and comparing it to the photo, obviously it doesn't have to be exactly like the photo, but you know, this area over here is just a bit darker, kind of push some of that a little bit more, push the darkness inside a bit more, and on this side as well. Overall, just kind of push the shadows a bit more. And I understand that could be just be the exposure of this photograph as well. It might have lightened up the darks, so we could be seeing it a little bit differently. That's always a possibility. But yeah, if not, definitely push the contrast a little bit. You know, don't be afraid to push that contrast, because if we look at the photograph, especially in this area down here, this reflected light going on, and see how dark it is right above it and these little dots and stuff. It's pretty dark above there. And now if we remember this area, and if you squint at it, it'll really simplify the values. Now if we go back to your drawing, we can see we're missing some of that contrast there. So we're missing some of those darks. You have a few of them here, some of the dots and stuff, but we're missing that the darks above it and stuff to really give it that popping light effect there. But you kind of have it there. It's just, I think you just need to push it more. You know, don't be afraid to go a bit darker. Also, the drawing aspect is, it's slightly off, and what I mean by that is the form here. So see how these lines converge at the edges? So if we look at these lines, you kind of just drew them to a point, and I feel like as it's wrapping around the bowl, they would have just curved upward a little bit. It would have mirrored. See this curve you have up here? at the top, we want to mirror that curve on these lines because it's the same exact kind of curve. You know, we're kind of curving around. It's going to be curving up and around. And same thing on this side as well. They're not just going to come to a point like that. They're going to slightly curve up more. It's basically you're just going to draw a line going up vertically. Boom, going up right there. Boom, up. So if we look at the reference photo, we can see how they just start curving up more. They don't just stop at a point. They kind of curve, go up, and they mimic this curve up here. And the farther, the more they go down the bowl, the more drastic and closer together they get. The more drastic that perspective becomes. So that's something to take note of, and it's something you're missing a little bit here on this one. You know, it makes it look a bit flat. That's why I'm mentioning that. So we're losing some of the three-dimensional form of it. Wish I could demonstrate this, but I think you guys get the idea of what I'm talking about there. Oh, otherwise it's not bad. And that's the end of the timer there. But it's not bad. It's definitely not a bad effort. You have a lot of subtlety in the values. The texture is really nice. You got these little dots and stuff. Everything pretty well. You know, I think it's just you have some of the measurements are off a little bit. You know, if we look at these dots, how high they come up on the bowl, and compare it to the reference over here, they're a bit lower on the bowl. They come down. They curve a bit more downward in the middle, and then go up. So we're losing that form, that perspective. So yeah, I think just mimicking this thing you have at the top and just drawing that all the way down. And imagine that spiraling all the way down. And that's the line you're going to want to follow. So this curve at the top here, you're going to want to mimic that with these stones as well, or not stones, but in this texture. Because if we look at the bowl, we can see this line here, this curve, and then all these lines curve the same, and then these kind of follow that kind of curve as well. But then on the drawing here, we see we have this curve, your lines curve very nicely, but then you're missing that curve. Your curve gets much flatter. Becomes almost straight across right here. So we just want to follow that curve down a bit more. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, a lot of subtlety here, a lot of, you know, nice things happening. Very soft shadow. I like how you soften the edge. That's good. A lot of people would miss that kind of thing, softening edges and stuff. So I like that you have, you know, the nuances and the subtlety and the softness and stuff. It's just, and I like the ridges that you have and the lines. You know, you got the values right and all this stuff. So it's just playing around with that form. You're missing the form and the perspective a little bit. So yeah, round out the bottom and try to maintain those curves all the way around the bowl. Let's go to the next one. We got just a few more here, folks. Not many left. All right, 4 minutes on the clock. Let me disable. There we go. Okay. So they sent this in after studying portraits for 4 months, I believe they said. I think this is a watercolor. If I'm going to guess, which I am, and I just guessed. It could be acrylics though. It could be acrylics as well. You know, there is or gouache, could be gouache. I don't know. Either way, let's just take a look at it and take it for what it is. I really love the lighting here. I love look at the subtlety of the warmth there, the light in the eyes, the shadows, the subtlety. You got some light and dark eyelashes and stuff. Soft values, soft transitions, sharp edges where you need. you know, awesome temperature. I think this is done really well. I really like this, actually. I mean, this looks really good. The only thing that bothers me that I can see right away, right now, the hair here. If we look at the hair, and I know you're probably just copying a photograph or something, and maybe that's how it is on the photo. Part of me does like it because it has this green tinge to it, because it's like a blonde hair, and usually when in the shadows and stuff, a blonde hair, it has this like green, it takes on this green kind of tinge to it. And I do like that because you have all this red and warmth, so it kind of contrasts a bit with that. But what I don't like about it, hello buddy, my cat just came up and pawed at me. What I don't like about it is the temperature. The temperature of it, it seems too cool. It seems too cold. You know, you have this warmth of the face, really warm, reflected light there in the shadow. But then the hair, I feel like we lost the warmth there. You know, it gives off this vibe of coolness. And now when I see it in context to the rest of everything, everything's this warm color. You have this warm shadows and stuff. But then the hair right there, it seems cool, like too cool. I feel like we need some browns in there to kind of transition from that cooler reflected light into a warmer dark. So I think just adding in some brown there, like a really rich kind of dark, you know, it doesn't have to be very, very warm, but just more on the warm side so that it fits in with everything. That's the only thing I can really see about this thing. You know, some of the flowers here look a bit flat, and I understand that's very difficult, very challenging to get to look three-dimensional, but the face is, the portrait's done really well. There's almost nothing I would change except for that kind of temperature. But it's not bad the way it is, to be honest. It's really not that bad. It's just it's just the temperature seems a little off to me for some reason, because you have all that warmth in the shadow there, and then it gets, even up here on the forehead, it looks a little too cool. You know, I think we need like a warm transition tone in there, kind of like what you have here right on the edge of the cheek. I feel we need that warmth right up here, like boom, right there. And also right in the hair. A little bit of warmth. Kind of like what you have here, these midtones and this warms and stuff. I think we just need, boom, just a little bit of warm there. And I think that'll be really nice. But yeah, maybe some softness, maybe more softness on some of these petals. Like looking here, I mean, it's very harsh, and I think it can look a little too cartoony and a little flat. So I think trying to match some of the softness you have here and subtlety on the portrait. Sorry folks. You know, some of this, I mean, you have a lot of subtlety and softness here. I think bringing some of that subtlety and softness in these transitions over here into the flowers, you know, and I think it'll look really, really good. You know, I don't know about these moths as well. I feel like, do they bother me? What do I think? I feel like for them to fit in, they need like a little bit more, not color, but like they need something. They need a hint of something, because they're so pale and monochromatic that they almost distract from everything else. I feel like if they just had a little bit of hint of something, you know, like some kind of skin tone color somewhere, very lightly, or you know, I don't know, but that's personal preference for me. But I do like the shapes. I like that they're in there. It just adds a little bit more of something there. But yeah. But the portrait, I mean, the portrait is amazing. That's done really, really well. Definitely keep up the portrait work. And yeah, keep practicing with those flowers and stuff. Try to make the get that same kind of softness you have on the face into the flowers. But thanks for sending that in. I appreciate it. All right, so we got one from I believe this is from Cubs Win. They've sent in something every time for these critiques. I think Nathan has as well. So I greatly appreciate you guys sending stuff in all the time. It's really cool. This one's definitely different, a little bit different from what we've seen in the past from Cubs Win. Remind me, Cubs Win, is this, this was a portrait of someone's dog, I believe, or something like that, to that effect. Can't exactly remember, but this was, I think, watercolor on canvas? Yeah, there you go. First attempt of watercolor on canvas. So, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, Nathan. They might be going for a more surrealistic style than the photorealism. Yeah, on the past one, I believe. I agree. So this one, watercolor on canvas, I don't even, that's, is that even a real thing? Like, I mean, I guess you can do it. It seems like it works, but I wonder, does the watercolor bind to the canvas very well, or does it come off easily? I feel like, yeah, I don't know how, I feel like that'd be very difficult to do and to put multiple layers, but it seems like you were able to get really dark here. You were able to get really dark. Yeah, I like, it's interesting the texture you're able to get from the canvas. I like the look in his eyes. It's really cool. I mean, it's definitely a focal point there. You have the light in the eyes and everything. It looks like you have some flowers and stuff growing in the foreground. I feel like maybe a little bit more definition on those or something to kind of bring it home. Oh, so you treat canvas with alcohol first and then watercolor. It will wash right off if not careful. Very challenging. Yeah, that's what I thought. So it doesn't seem like it binds to the canvas very well, and that's where you're getting some of these effects here. Like you're getting these lighter areas on the ears and stuff. Like I bet when you try to do a second layer, it just takes it off. Exactly. So you just had a hard time because when any water added, it lifts color. Okay, and then so when you finish it, use a UV archival spray. Okay. Yeah, that's very challenging. So obviously you're not going to be able to get the effects of like a normal watercolor, but you did. I mean, you captured the dog's look. I think it's really cool. You know, you got some interesting textures and different kinds of values. I think because you're doing the canvas, it's pretty nice. The only thing, you know, the greens here are a little too raw looking. You know, it looks like pure Viridian you were using. It looks like very cool type of color. So I would like to see, personal preference, obviously, color choices is anything. Oh, so this was an experiment. Yeah, I thought so. So yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I'm glad you experimented and tried it. You know, a lot of people don't like to experiment that much, and I agree. I think that's really cool. Yeah, I think the greens are a little too raw. I would like to see more yellow greens brought in here for the grass and stuff. I think that would really bring it to life a little bit more, as far as that is concerned. The sky here, it might be a little too dark. The blue, it gives off this vibe of it gives like a gloomy vibe to it overall. It might just be the photo too, but yeah, you just gotta be careful with a really dark blue sky like that sometimes, because it just gives it, you know, it can be challenging to get the right kind of sky you're going for. But overall, not a bad effort. It's not a bad effort. And definitely, I commend you for experimenting like that and going for it and trying something new like that. And I think you did pretty well given the circumstances. Yeah, really cool. Thanks for sending this in. But yeah, keep on painting, keep experimenting. I like your style. I like the style of your past paintings. You know, I feel like it's missing some of that color you had in your previous paintings. You know, the kind of vibrant reds and yellows and blues and stuff. I feel like we're missing a little bit of that here, which is okay. I mean, it's not a big deal. But okay, you said this is a very small canvas too, so okay, I could see that could be challenging for sure, no doubt. But yeah, anyway, thanks for sending that in. Let's get to the last one here, folks. Last one of the night. 1 second. It's getting dark here, so I want to close my blinds. So this looks like a watercolor, no doubt to me. What's going on? Alexander, what's happening? Thanks for tuning in. So with this one, I love the sky. I think it's really cool. It's always hard for me to get these kind of effects, these really wet into wet kind of effects. I love the sky here. So the interesting thing here, folks, do we notice something about this one that I mentioned in some of the very first critiques about composition? So we see half and half here almost, half sky, half ground. Almost. But I will say, in this one, it doesn't bother me as much. It looks more like gouache. It could be. Could be, but I feel like this looks like watercolor to me. I don't see... I mean, you can get pretty opaque with watercolor, so I think stuff in the foreground is just opaque watercolor, or just watercolor that's more opaque. Cut in half, but it doesn't bother me as much. And I think one of the main reasons why... Yeah, the foreground, exactly. The foreground really helps it because you have this part of the foreground and then this part, even though that's kind of cut in half as well. So that's something to watch for too. You know, you don't normally, you want to try to avoid anything being equal like that, equal in height or width or anything. You know, composition is very challenging, so just try to avoid equal segments of things. So we have this being the same height as this part of the foreground, and then we have this part of the foreground being the same height as the sky. So gotta be careful with that kind of stuff. It's hard to see sometimes, especially when you're just painting for photographs, and maybe if you're just practicing, composition doesn't really matter. You know, you're not really focusing on composition, but you just gotta be careful about that kind of thing. And but let's start off with what I like about it. I love the sky. The sky's done very well. I love the subtle warms in there, the cools, the texture, the softness. Everything's really lovely. I love the mountains back here. These are done really, really well. Subtle values here, subtle things here, nice form. The composition's good. We got different hills that are kind of staggered and scattered across the landscape. This line over here, it's a bit sharp and flat. It's not too bad. I mean, I understand there are mountains and things like that in Arizona and other places that look like that, like plateaus. But that one's just, it's almost too perfect. I would be careful about that. I would just kind of soften some of that a bit, possibly very, very subtly, very subtle softening there. But to be honest, you could really almost crop this painting right here. this foreground area, I mean, it's almost like we don't even need that. We could just crop it and have this be more about the sky. But since we didn't, what bothers me about the foreground, I love the softness here of these bushes. I think that's done really well. I think this part of the painting suffers the most. The back part, the background here, the sky, the middle and background, done very well, very, very well. The foreground here suffers a little bit. I love the different kinds of colors. I love how neutral they are and toned down. Nothing's too overpowering, except for the values here. This is very overpowering. Now, I understand we need darks in the landscape, but the placement of them is little too much, especially this right in the middle. And having this whole line of them, I would kind of break it up a little bit. I would take this one in the middle and really kind of move it over to the side over here. Maybe bring it closer to us as well. I do like how it makes us zigzag this way and then we come back. We have this kind of the way my eye goes around this painting, but I feel like we need to modify this because you have this whole jumble of dark shapes on this side, and it's really, we have an imbalance here going on. This side of the painting, we have no darks over here. So I think we need to take some of these away from this side, bring them over here, kind of balance it just a little bit more, but keep it interesting still. It doesn't have to be an equal balance. It just has to be, if you have a big dark shape over here, you just need a smaller one over here to balance out these larger shapes. And this little bush right here, that's very distracting. I think a lot of that needs to be softened, simplified, and just drawn as simple lines very quickly. They don't need to be that dark. I think more subtlety. The foreground does need to have some kind of details and grasses and things, but our eye is wanting to go back to these mountains in the sky, so we don't want any distractions like this in the foreground. We want these darks to lead us back. Like you have this little bit here, how it's diagonal, like this shape down at the bottom here, how it kind of leads us, it points us this way, which is good. We go around these dark shapes and then these mountains kind of draw us back this way to the right. So kind of try to use these darks to kind of flow us into the painting, back into the painting. So, yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Deborah says we need some more quiet areas, and I agree. I think like this part here could be quieted down a bit. The foreground here is pretty quiet. I mean, it's a little chaotic, but it's very soft and stuff, so it's pretty quiet there. Over here it's pretty quiet. So we do have some quiet areas, but I agree it's just a little too jumbled. I think doing some thumbnail sketches to begin with and really planning out these foreground darks first, because that's where we go wrong. I don't mind these mountains and stuff. You did the values very well. The foreground's the darkest thing, then it gets lighter and lighter. You have nice atmospheric perspective. The colors are great. Everything is good. I think it's just that foreground and the composition. I think we could work on that a little bit more. Yeah, just work on that a little bit more. So anyway, folks, that concludes all of the critiques. So if you guys have any questions real quick, just let me know. Now is the time to ask them in the chat. I'll talk for another 5 minutes before I get off here. If you guys have any questions about anything related to art or painting, drawing, whatever, if you ever wanted to ask me anything, now's the time. Art related, ask me anything art related. But be sure to check out my website as well, schaeferfineart.com. I got some drawings paintings on there for sale, things you can check out. I also have a support page where you can donate to me through PayPal, Venmo. I have the Threadless shop with some clothes and stuff in there. Patreon page to support me monthly if you feel like it, or you can join as a member here on YouTube to support me. Or I have a Bandcamp page where you can check out instrumentals that I've made, music and stuff, other ways to support me. So that's all over at my website, SchaeferFineArt.com. But yeah, folks, that was a pretty good set of paintings. I appreciate everybody that sent something in. It's cool seeing all the different varieties of artists and different skill levels, different subject matter, different usages of like style and color and all kinds of things, man. It's so cool, you know, that we're all united under this one umbrella of art, and everything is so different still. You know, we have all these different ways of approaching things and creating things and stuff like that. Somebody asked me, Lynn's Criv asked, do you still work in oils? If not, why? I don't still work in oils. The reason is because I don't like I don't like all the chemicals. I don't like the cleanup. I don't like the preparation. It's too expensive having to buy certain kinds of panels, and there's just a lot more materials to carry around. It's hard to do plein air wise. It's very difficult to do oils plein air for me personally. Carry all that stuff around. For me, watercolor is just more intuitive. It's quicker. Not much I have to clean, and I can just pull things out of my book bag really quickly, a small setup, and boom, I'm ready to go. And yeah, I just got more attracted to watercolors instead of oils. So that's kind of the route I took. And then, you know, watercolors are all on paper, so it just stacks up. Instead of having these thicker paintings and bigger paintings and stuff, I just have these smaller paintings on paper, and that's just what I go with. That's just how I feel now, and what I'm interested in. So that's why, I guess. Tam, thank you for the donation of $3.99. It's actually $3 US. I greatly appreciate that so much. Thank you so much for the donation. Hope you enjoyed the stream, and thank you for the support. It'll definitely go to a good cause. We'll do some more live streams on here. Next week we'll do some more painting, drawing. We'll get back to it. But so what's happening for next week? Do you have a theme? I don't have a theme yet. I'm going to plan out this weekend. I'll plan out what I'm going to do. I think next week's schedule is 3 watercolor paintings and 2 pen and ink drawings. So Monday will be a watercolor, I think. Yeah, because I did a drawing yesterday. So tomorrow will be Monday will be a watercolor. And then I'll plan out all the streams this week and have them scheduled. But I'll probably be like painting a polar bear that I drew in the past. Maybe painting some of the architecture that I've drawn in the past. You know, we'll try to just do some different things, try to mix it up. Deborah Smith asks, have you ever tried gouache? And if so, did you enjoy painting with that medium? I have tried gouache, and I've shown some gouache paintings on this stream before. If you want to see them real quick, I can go grab them. Take me like 10 seconds. But trying to see where they're at. I think they're in the other room. But yeah, I have done a few gouache and stuff. I do enjoy it, but not as much as watercolor. I don't enjoy it as much as watercolor, but I do like the texture I can get within, the dry brushing, the opacity of it. It's a lot of fun to use sometimes for certain subjects. But it's challenging for me. I don't like, it doesn't dry up on the palette very nicely, so it's hard to like re-wet it. You always have to squeeze out more paint if you want to, you know, get like a thicker paint and stuff. So that's kind of why I like watercolor, because you can easily just spray the colors, re-wet them, and it just works really nicely. But anyway, folks, yeah, if you want to see some of the gouache paintings for anybody new here that's never seen them, I can show them real quick. But if not, I can in the stream, and that'll be it. But anyway, folks, just waiting one more second here. We'll see what's happening. See what you guys. Any more questions? Any more questions? Okay, no more. Okay, you guys said you'd like to see them. I will go grab them. Give me like 10 seconds. 10 seconds. Let's do it. Do you have any tips on how to do better proportions? Okay, that's a very good question. I will, let me grab the gouache real quick and I will answer that question as well. Let me think about that one. Do you have any tips on how to do better proportions? Okay. All right, folks, here we go. Here's some gouache paintings. So better proportions. I have some of my most popular videos, actually. If you go to my channel, you click my little icon, go to Schaefer Art channel, and you go to this, go to the search box or whatever for my channel, and you type in proportions. Some of my most popular videos, or very popular videos, are on proportions, actually. And I go over it in depth there, but I can talk about it a little bit here in a second. But here we got a jellyfish. This is a monochrome gouache. And I did it on, this is tone tan paper. So it gives a nice effect, I think. There's some landscape. I've done in gouache. These were for Inktober last year. And I just did like, they're not ink, but I just did them as monochrome. Just black and white. And then here's a color gouache. I use this one more like watercolor. So there's a lot of the tan paper showing through at the bottom. And yeah, a lot of landscapes and stuff. These are from last year, gouache paintings. So I like a lot of these. These are all for sale on my website, by the way, schaeferfineart.com. A lot of these I put up for sale already. But yeah, I love doing them this size and on this tone paper. They come out really well, I think. A lot of dry brushing here at the top of this one. And I see I left some of the tan paper to show through, so it's pretty cool. I really like using it. A lot of dry brushing here. Oh man, feels like I'm missing one. One of my favorite ones. Oh well. But yeah, there's some of the gouache I've done. That's some of the gouache I've done. But anyway, yeah, for proportions is you know, it's what was your initial question? Do you have tips on how to get better proportions? So if I'm drawing something, like say I'm drawing my head, one thing you can do is determine the height or the width. Maybe determine the height. Like, so on your paper, draw a line where the top and the bottom of my head is going to be, how tall you want it to be. And then all you have to do is figure out how wide it is compared to the height. You get what I'm saying? And that's proportions, you know? So if you make it wider than it is tall, then the proportions aren't going to be right. So one way you could do that is you could draw the top and the bottom and then one side. And then all you have to figure out is this one side. If you keep all these in the same spot, and then you just kind of connect everything around to those outermost points, and fill in, and then you can kind of guesstimate where is that last side sticking out at farthest point. So that's how you can, one way to get overall main proportions. But you can use that with anything. Like if you're drawing a nose on a face, you know, determine the top and the bottom, and then try to figure out one side of it, and then try to figure out, okay, how wide is that last side of it, you know. Try to think about it that way. So, you know, there's a lot of little tricks like that to think about. Mary asks, Brandon, behind you I see a mantle back here, but no art hanging above it. Why don't you display your art? I don't have any art displayed on any of my walls, so I don't really want to hang anything up or bother with that, so I don't do that in this apartment. I just don't want to put a bunch of holes in the wall. I don't want to have to worry about it when I move out and stuff, so I leave it all blank for now. If I want to look at some of my art, I'll just go and look through it, you know. Any tips for painting birds? I'm new to art and your channel just subscribed. Well, thank you for subscribing. Thanks for tuning in. Tips for painting birds? I mean, I think you should approach birds the way you approach anything else for painting. So I don't really have tips on painting birds specifically. I haven't really painted many birds, to be honest, but I imagine they're just like painting anything else. So the feathers are usually soft, so keep a lot of softness for the feathers. The edges is what I'm talking about, soft edges mostly, at least within the bird. Yeah, break it down into simple shapes, you know, simple shapes. Everything is simple shapes of value and color, light and dark and color. So just keep it simple, you know. Any other questions? Any other questions before I get off here? Thank you, Mary. I appreciate that. Greatly appreciated. Tips to draw hands. Same thing. Hands are a bit tricky. They're one of the hardest things to draw. A few years ago, I actually filled up an entire sketchbook with only hands. So I would recommend doing that if you really want to get good at drawing hands. But what you can do is break it down, this main big part first, draw that, and then treat the fingers as a big like fan shape, right? So determine this big shape, you know, is it like this? Is it spread out? Is it, you know, like this? You know, what's the shape of this, you know, the fingers, and then break it down from there. And you know, study your own. Luckily you have two hands, so you can just sit there and study your own hand, draw from life a lot. Put your hand in all the different kinds of ways and just draw it from life. But the fingers usually fan outward everywhere. So it kind of goes down into a point almost. Especially if you're able to see like the bones in the back of your hand like me, you can see that the fingers kind of go down into a point on the wrist. So that's something to think about as well. And then the thumb, obviously you can just break that down into a simple shape as well. It's kind of a wing that hangs off this rectangular shape of the palm. So yeah, just think, you know, just break everything down into simple forms. Simple forms, you know. You could look at a hand and be like, oh man, that's so hard to draw. Like, that's going to be so complex. But what's going on here? You know, simple forms. Like, okay, here's a cube, a rectangular cube, another rectangular cube. You know, you got to break all these angles down. And the way to, like, if you had all these different angles and you're wondering, like, man, how am I going to draw all these angles? Try to think of think of that angle on a clock. What time would it be? Like this angle or this angle. Like what time would that be pointing to? Is it like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 1 o'clock? You know, try to 11 o'clock. Try to think of it as a hand on a clock. So that's one way to think about angles and stuff as well. But anyway, guys, I think I got to get off here. Thank you for the questions. Hope you guys enjoyed the critique and everything. But I think I got to get off here, eat some dinner and stuff. Hope it was helpful. Hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for tuning in. Like I said, last minute, be sure to check out my website before you get out of here. And I got some other stuff on there. All kinds of stuff. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. And I will see you guys Monday probably. Take care of yourself. Peace.